turning my brush every which way but loose, holding it loose and going up and down. I'm going to change again, and I'm going to put the little window in right here. And I'm going to put my barn door. This might, I don't know, this is kind of a blue door. It might just be a large window. Not really sure what it is. But it's kind of a blue-white, and it's got some white crossing on it. Turning my brush sideways to get all that oil paint off. Now let's get the window in. Sometimes it's just easier to change brushes than it is to clean a new one. Go back to my barn brush, get back in my red, and we want to get this top. There's not much red on this top at all. It's got more moss green on it, I guess where it's been in the woods so long. So I'm just going to get just a little bit of red to show it's part of the building. Okay, just a chunk here and there. There is a window. So let me get that pieced off. There we go. Here's the top of that window. Now, that's about as much red as I'm going to do. I'm going to get into some green with my red brush. Use a little bit of white. And this has just got tons of moss on it. So I'm going to use this, put moss all over top of this barn like this. Blend it with the red I just added, and it'll give it that perfect touch. I'm using an angle brush because we're getting into some corners here. They're good to draw with or get into, see, I'm using the point and you can actually draw a little bit with that. Got to keep that roof line straight. There we go. That's real mossy. Now, while we've got that on our brush, I'm going to go on down here and mess it up on the barn some. Don't think I'm crazy. This is kind of how Impressionism paintings look. They're just mossy and kind of cruddy. Look here, I'm going to get a lot of this green on this barn like this. I'm just turning my brush sideways. And it's not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. There we go. Let's get this old cruddy green on this barn down here. The cruddier we make it, the more impressionistic it's going to look, and the better I'm going to like it. All right. Now, that roof up on top of this barn is just green. But I'm going to add a little bit of black to it, just to give it definition. Here we go. It's the top of that barn just kind of blends into the forest behind it, really. Okay, let's add some black. Get up here and make some depth. Now, remember, we're not through with our trees, so you can get up here and just kind of crud around, okay? All right, let me soften that just a little. This olive palette has been good. There we go. You can't get too much dark back here. This is a dense forest. I'll add a little lighter green on top in a minute. Okay, now, while I've got this dark on my brush, I'm going to add some more crust to my barn. Under here is a really long, deep shadow. So I'm going to bring it on down like this. Watch.
waiting on
Where's Chad?
glasses.
Where's Chad? I know he's here.
We'll start in just a minute.
I know he's here.
One pair of glasses
Arms aren't
is
long
two
enough.
pair of glasses.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
All right. I want to call to order this Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of June 4th, 2019. Tara, would you please call the roll?
Denise?
Here.
Fire Robin?
Yeah, here.
King?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
Young?
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and thank you for attending. Your interest in our city government is very appreciated. There's a number of opportunities to speak on matters of city business this evening. A sheet explaining those opportunities has been made available to you when entering the room. As we go forward with tonight's agenda, I'll note each time when public comment is welcome. In addition, there was a sign-up sheet provided as you enter for individuals who wish to address City Council during appearance of citizens on our agenda. And tonight's a pretty special meeting. It's the last formal meeting for a couple of our City Council members, so I welcome their families here, and we'll be showing some appreciation during the meeting tonight. First, we have the invocation and pledge, and Jack, would you like to introduce?
Sure. Tonight, we have with us our assistant pastor, or our youth pastor at Buffalo Ridge Baptist Church in Gray, Tennessee, where my wife and family and I attend. And if you would stand with us, and we'll open in prayer with Brother Bob Mams.
And then if Councilwoman Vice Mayor Denise can lead us in the pledge.
Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the privilege to be here. Thank you for the beautiful weather today. We thank you for this council. We thank you for the mayor. I pray that you give them wisdom as they meet tonight. And thank you so much for their service to the city of Bristol. Thank you especially for Councilman Young and his service to this community. And we pray for those who are meeting here tonight. And I pray that you'll bless this time. Give them wisdom, we pray. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In addition, I would like for us all to be in thought and prayer with folks around our country and around our world, but as city folks, particularly those folks in Virginia Beach who had suffered from violence this past week. So take time to think about them, their families, their co-workers. We appreciate that. Mr. Sora, do you have items to add to tonight's agenda?
No, Mayor, we have no additions to tonight's agenda. However, under the item of recognition, under the Traffic Safety Ambassador Award, the recipient of that award could not be with us this evening, and they'll be with us at our July 9th meeting, and we'll recognize them at that time.
Thank you very much. So we have 3 proclamations, and now we have one
Two.
Does that make 2 still? Still, we have 2 recognitions on tonight's agenda. The first proclamation we have is Alzheimer's Awareness Month for the month of June 2019. And I'd like to ask Councilman Keene to read the proclamation, and Ms. Donna Baker, Alzheimer's Association Marketing Outreach Volunteer, is with us to accept the proclamation, and she'll also identify her co-volunteer and head of the campaign for this fall. If y'all want to go ahead and come over here to receive your recognition, and Councilman Keene will go ahead and read it.
So I did want to mention one person that very close to me that passed away within the last 2 weeks, Mac McElroy, lived in Raleigh for about the last 10 years, was my next door neighbor for 19 years. He worked in clinical trial management services for about 12 years and worked at King College for another, I want to say 20 years. Mac was responsible for the largest fundraiser that King University ever had, which was it raised $39 million. Wow. Special person. Just lost him to what was termed as primary progressive aphasia, which is caused by Alzheimer's. And so miss him a lot. Just attended his funeral about 2 weeks ago, and I'll read this. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is a progressive degenerative disorder that attacks the brain and results in impaired memory, thinking, and behavior, ultimately leaving its victims totally incapable of caring for themselves, is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. Whereas currently there are over 5.8 million individuals in the United States and 120,000 in the state of Tennessee with Alzheimer's disease, and nearly 16 million Americans care for someone with dementia. And whereas every 65 seconds someone in the United States develops Alzheimer's disease, 1 in 7 people over the age of 65, nearly half of those over the age of 85 will get Alzheimer's disease, along with a percentage of persons in their mid-30s and 40s. And whereas the annual cost of Alzheimer's disease and dementias equal $234 billion, and whereas the Alzheimer's Association is a nonprofit voluntary health organization working throughout the region to provide education, support, and advocacy to those living with the disease, and to support research efforts to find a cure for future generations. And whereas many encouraging research studies are being conducted and several drug treatments have been introduced which delay the onset of disease symptoms, improving the quality of life for those afflicted and reducing the strain on caregivers. And now, therefore, it be resolved that the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim June 19th as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month in Bristol, Tennessee. This 4th day of June, 2019, Mayor Margaret Fierrobin.
And I have to clap.
If y'all come forward to receive it and have your photo taken.
This is just wonderful, and I love that the visual is up there, and your story was just very moving. It is the 4th leading killer in Tennessee, Alzheimer's disease, 6th in the nation. So it is I'm going to call it an epidemic. It affects all of us in some way. Right now, we have a Alzheimer's Impact Movement. It's AIM, and you can go online, and they are actually trying to pass a bill at this moment about early onset. So it's happening younger and younger. So early onset would be like giving people who are under the age of 60 the same type of support and assistance that the older people would get. So that's a very important bill that's out there. So if you can contact your representative or just, go on the AIM website, that would be something very helpful that we would would love to do. And then my volunteer cohort here, Blaine Calhoun, he is actually the chairperson. We are both volunteers. It's a huge volunteer base, and we invite all of you, or if you know someone who could help out. And it doesn't have to be a full-time thing, just anything you can do helps us. But Blair's going to tell you about something exciting about the city of Bristol that's coming up soon.
Thank you. Our annual walk this year is going to be October 19th, and it's going to be at the Pinnacle. It's the first time we've had it in Bristol in a while. So in previous years, we've had different walks around the Tri-Cities. So now we're having one big walk at the Pinnacle, October 19th. And it's a way for all of us to come together, raise money for research, and not only for research, but some of that money stays here local, so we can get the word out to caregivers in the area about the resources available to them that are free. And that's part of what we do, is to make sure that the people who need the resources get the resources, and just getting the word out to let them know that there's resources out there for them to help with caregiving. So it's one of our biggest jobs too, is to go around and we meet with companies and go out there and just let them know what type of resources are available, maybe let them know about the signs of dementia and Alzheimer's, to educate as well. So we want to thank you again. We invite everybody to come out October 19th at the Pinnacle. It's going to be a great event. Get out there with your fellow citizens, and let's raise some money for this all horrible disease. And right now there's no cure for that. So there's a lot of studies going on, but there's nothing out there, and what we want to do is have that first survivor from Alzheimer's. That's what we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next proclamation is National Homeowner Month for June 2019. And Vice Mayor Denise is going to read the proclamation, and we have Dan Witcher, Chairman of the Community Development Advisory Committee, and Ms. Christina Blevins, who's Community Development Specialist, with us to accept the proclamation.
Whereas throughout our nation's history, home ownership has been central to the American way of life. Home ownership plays a critical role in strengthening families and communities, and for those reasons, our nation has long promoted home ownership. And whereas since America's earliest days, home ownership has been creating community stakeholders who are active in charities and their places of worship, and more likely to vote and become involved in local issues. Moreover, home ownership offers children a stable living environment and influences their development in measurable ways. Children of homeowners have higher student test scores, a higher rate of high school graduation, thereby higher earning potential, and are more likely to participate in organized activities. Quite simply, our nation is made stronger by the hardworking families and individuals who participate in the American dream of home ownership. And whereas home ownership also serves as an engine of social mobility and the pathway to prosperity, in fact, owning a home is a family's quickest and surest path to self-sufficiency and provides families with stability and security. Home ownership builds wealth over time, and in the long run, buying is more cost-effective than renting. In the past 15 years, the net worth of the typical homeowner has ranged between 31 and 46 times that of the net worth of the typical renter. And whereas today over 75 million Americans are homeowners, composing more than 63.7% of Americans' households, the average first-time home buyer is about 33 and at the front end of the millennial generation. Approximately 80% of the 41.4 million Americans aged 65 and older own their home. They have the highest home ownership rate among all age groups. Every state has a home ownership rate of at least 50%. The housing sector directly accounts for approximately 14% of total economic activity. And whereas the federal government and the state of Tennessee are working aggressively to make home ownership more affordable and more accessible, and to ensure that the dream of home ownership is available to all Americans. The City of Bristol, Tennessee joins with the federal and state government in this mission. Now therefore, the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim June 2019 as National Home Ownership Month and ask all citizens within the City of Bristol, Tennessee to join us in recognizing the importance of providing affordable housing and the opportunity for home ownership for all Americans this 4th day of June 2019. Mayor Margaret Firerobin.
Home ownership is very critical to a community and to a town and city. And we thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for recognizing this important activity in the lives of families and individuals within our community. We had done a little exercise just to see. We won't go into any real detail on it, and I want to be very brief. But looking to see how affordable housing really was within the community. Basically, several of us conducted a little research. There's 4 columns that you see in the categories down on the left side. Bristol, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia, Knoxville, Kingsport, and Chattanooga, and national average. First column is annual median household income. The second is median home value. These 2 databases came from international data group, Data USA, coordinated by a professor at MIT, published by the MIT Media Lab. And from that data, we basically looked at a conservative way to look at what a mortgage would be based on those figures. 10% down payment, 15-year mortgage at 4.5% annual interest rate. And that leads to the third column, which is the annual mortgage payment for those figures at that buying price over 15-year, 4.5%. There's generally a rule of thumb in lenders. Around 28% is the cutoff that they'd recommend mortgage be below that before a house, to make a house affordable to a family and to individuals, household. National average, if you notice on the far left, I'll come up the column. National average is about 30%. Even in Upper East Tennessee, Chattanooga, although even the income's slightly higher, the homes are more expensive down there. So it's about 30%, close to national average. Kingsport, 29%. Knoxville, 28%. And you notice the top 2, Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia, 24%. So what this shows, we all know Bristol's a great place to live, but this shows it's a great place to own a home. So thank you very much for recognizing the home ownership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Through a lot of these proclamations and presentations, we learn things, and it helps us to become more aware and be able to make decisions more appropriately. So appreciate that. Next, we have Men's Health Month. Designating the June 2019. So June's a pretty busy month with different things. And I would like to ask Councilman Jack Young to read the proclamation. And Mr. Andy Hall from Ballard Health's Vice President for Community and Government Relations is with us this evening to receive the proclamation.
Whereas despite advances in medical technology and research, men continue to live an average of 5 years less than women, with Native American and African American men having the lowest life expectancies. And whereas educating the public and health care providers about the importance of healthy lifestyles and early detection of male health problems will result in reducing rates of mortality from disease. And whereas men who are educated about the value of preventive health can play a role in prolonging their lifespan, and their role as a productive family member will be more likely to participate in health screenings. And whereas fathers who maintain a healthy lifestyle are role models for their children and have happier, healthier children. And whereas Men's Health Network worked with Congress to develop the National Men's Health Awareness Period as a special campaign to educate men, boys, and their families about the importance of positive health attitudes and preventive health practices. And whereas the Men's Health Month website has been established at menshealthmonth.org and features resources and information about awareness, events, and activities. Whereas Men's Health Month will focus on a broad range of men's health issues, including heart disease, diabetes, mental health, prostate, testicular, and colon cancer. Whereas the citizens of this city are encouraged to increase awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle, regular exercise, and medical checkups. Now therefore, Margaret Firerobin, the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim June 2019 as Men's Health Month and encourage all our citizens to pursue preventive health practices and early detection efforts this 4th day of June 2019.
Thank you for inviting me to be here this evening. I accept this proclamation on behalf of the many physicians, clinicians, and caregivers at Ballot Health and men everywhere, especially in our community. Early detection and treatment is so vitally important as we fight these diseases, so thank you very much.
This evening, it's our privilege to honor 2 Tennessee high school athletes for their accomplishments at this year's state wrestling tournament. Mr. Dominic Fields and Mr. Dylan Penley are being recognized as the TSSAA Class AAA 160-pound weight class and 138-pound weight class of 2019 state wrestling champions, respectively. Dominic was also the 2018 state wrestling champion in the 145-pound class and Tennessee High School's first state wrestling champion. Dominic and Dylan are members of the Tennessee High class of 2019. Dominic will continue his wrestling career at Southwest Virginia Community College, and Dylan will attend the United States Naval Academy. Dominic and Dylan are with us this evening, along with Athletic Director Barry Wade and Head Wrestling Coach Tim Marshall. Would you please come forward? And I think we also, council, would like to have our photograph taken with you as well. So.
I will say a little something if it's okay. I could stand here and probably talk till dark about these two, but I'll spare you guys of that. So they're both seniors, as you mentioned. They're graduating this year, so that's it's kind of tough for us as coaches to kind of see that happen. We were at a wrestling tournament last week in Pigeon Forge, and driving home, it just occurred to me that it's probably the first time in 10 or 12 years of coaching that one of these two hadn't been in the car with me or in the bus with me going to one of these wrestling tournaments. So, you know, I could stand here and talk all evening about the statistics, the 215 wins, the 2 state championships. There's just tons and tons of stuff that I could stand and talk about. But the impact that they've had on our program as young men, growing up from 5 and 6-year-old, coming up through our wrestling program for our community and for our high school and for our school has been amazing. So I want to recognize them for that and what they've been for the program and for what they've built for the youth program, the youth wrestlers and the high school wrestlers coming up in the future. So thank you.
We will, as we said before, the Bristol Traffic Ambassador will be at our next meeting in July, so we'll save that recognition. Next, we have recognition for our Bristol First program. The city has over 340 full and part-time employees that serve the community on a daily basis. We frequently hear of employees that go above and beyond in their service. To that end, the Bristol First program was developed to recognize those efforts. Tonight, we honor our latest recipient of the Bristol First Award. Ms. Terry Talbert, Director of Community Relations, is present to give us a brief overview of the program and announce tonight's award winner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, Mr. Sora. It's amazing that we're celebrating or honoring the people who survive and are living with Alzheimer patients. Almost every day we hear of someone with Alzheimer's or dementia wandering or actually getting lost. This behavior can happen at any stage in Alzheimer's. If you have a loved one that has Alzheimer's, she may be or he may be at a risk of getting lost at any time of the day or night. I can tell you from my own experience, this leaves you with a constant concern every day of your life while you're away from that Alzheimer's patient. There's an innate comfort in knowing that in this community that we are surrounded by caring and reactive people to respond to those calls for help once alerted that a loved one is lost. This scenario was played out just a few weeks ago, and the family of an older adult who was a resident of a local memory care center was reported missing. The facility reported that the person had been missing for over 3 hours. Our recipient tonight, Major Matt Austin, is being recognized at the request of the patient's family for his dedication, the outstanding and courteous professionalism he exhibited during the search process for the patient. Major Austin was the officer who found the patient unharmed and delivered her back to the care facility. Knowing Major Austin, as most of us in this room do, I feel sure he made the individual feel comfort and compassion as he approached her. Even more, knowing Matt's kind heart, I'm sure he showed a level of gentleness that not all are equipped to do. Matt, if you and your family would step forward and receive your award from the mayor. And while they're coming forward, I would like to remind everyone that the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department has a program called Project Lifesaver. And I'm going to ask Matt to address that a little bit more and tell you more about that program. I think it's a wonderful program that we have based on the information that we heard tonight.
And again, thank you. I'm humbled and honored to accept this award, for actions that we do. But I'm just a small part of a wonderful organization, as part of a wonderful team that we have here in Bristol, and not just in the police department, but the community. So it makes it very special to receive this award. With Project Lifesaver, again, for those patients that may be stricken with Alzheimer's or even autistic in children, the Project Lifesaver allows us to put a band it's like a wristband that they can wear, that if they get lost, we have a mechanism to try to track that bracelet to help us. And again, in any emergency situation, when you look at those seconds and minutes count when we get to that, just like in this one, it was cold, it was in that thing, and the time really makes a difference. So the project, all they'd have to do is come in and talk with. There's a small sign-up form that they have to fill out to make sure they're eligible for the program, and then we can get them set up on. We train the family on how the equipment is used and how they do that to help us along the way to get better care and quicker care to those that may have wandered off. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, and we so appreciate you and the work that our public safety officers do. And I encourage all of us to spread the word about the Project Lifesaver. That's how people learn about things, more than newspaper articles, more than Facebook posts or whatever, is people spreading the word. So when you have conversations with folks who might need assistance, be sure to remember about the program. We have no presentations on tonight's agenda. For public hearings, we have 3 tonight. The first one is Ordinance 19-1, an ordinance to rename Pine Circle Drive to Andover Drive. Mr. Soar, would you explain it?
So I'm glad to. As council may recall from considering this matter on first reading last month, this is a request by the City of Bristol, Virginia, and they're in the process of making changes to various addresses throughout their city as part of their next-gen emergency 911 update that's currently underway. They've requested that Bristol, Tennessee consider renaming Pine Circle Drive in the Bristol, Tennessee portion to Andover Drive. If we could advance to the next slide, it should show that. As you can see, the portion that they are requesting, you see the line that's running east-west in the middle of the slide. That is the state line. And you can see that Andover Drive, beginning at the north of that slide and working its way south, eventually connects to Grove Park Drive. There's a section that's about 40 feet long that's denoted in green that's currently listed as Pine Circle Drive as part of their E911 update. They want to make this collinear street of Andover Drive all the way through Bristol, Virginia, the very short section of Bristol, Tennessee, to its connection with Grove Park Drive. There are no Bristol, Tennessee addresses on this short section. That the renaming is requested. Matter of fact, the property that's undeveloped there is actually addressed off of Grove Park Drive, so it really has no impact on Bristol, Tennessee, and our addressing system to move forward with this. This item is for your formal consideration later on this evening for second reading in our agenda.
Right, and I failed to say that the public hearing is open. So it is. Is there anyone here who would like to address this issue? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. The next ordinance, 19-2, is open, establishing the property tax, adoption of a budget, appropriate funds for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. Mr. Sora, why don't you just give us about an hour and 20-minute presentation about, y'all didn't know that was happening tonight.
This if approved on second reading this evening, this does culminate a 6-month or longer process, and I guess the longest project that the city has during the course of the year, and what I often say is probably the greatest public policy decision that this board will make. The fiscal 2020 budget and appropriation ordinance does total $121,058,532. It reflects an increase of $14,245,711, or 13.3% from the fiscal 2019 budget. In addition, Ordinance 19-2 establishes the property tax levy at the current rate of $2.1612 per $100 of assessed value, and the proposed budget maintains the current solid waste fees, water and sewer rates, and stormwater fees. The municipal government portion of the budget stands at $62,012,492. and reflects an increase of $3,635,232. As Council has requested or directed, the proposed budget focuses on key themes of infrastructure, education, and economic development. The budget continues all current programs as we know them now, or as we have in the past, but also makes strategic capital investments to meet the future needs of our community. Major projects included in this budget are the redevelopment of the 700 block of Shelby Street, the downtown streetscape and pedestrian improvements, a reconstruction of East Cedar Street, renovations at the water filtration plant, and resurfacing of approximately 14 lane miles of roadway. There are key partnerships that are also a part of this budget. They include partnering with Kingsport, Johnson City, Sullivan, and Washington County, Tennessee in the continued development of Aerospace Park. Also partnering with Bristol, Tennessee Essential Services and TVA and the Department of Economic and Community Development in the continued development of a 35-acre site at Bristol Business Park, as well as partnership with Networks, ECD, with the rail site development of the industrial product at Partnership Park 2. Proposed budget also includes a wage adjustment of 3% for city employees and an incremental adjustment for employees identified as being below the market wage for comparable positions in other positions. The school system budget totals $59,046,040 and reflects an increase in $10,610,479. This increase is primarily attributable to $14.25 million increase in the School Capital Facilities Fund. This is a transfer of funds from the Sullivan County School Improvement Bond that was taken 18 months ago now, transferred from the local government investment pool and set aside in the School Facilities Fund, School Capital Facilities Fund, for funding the middle school construction during the current fiscal year. We will transfer in fiscal 21, we'll transfer an additional amount for the second year of construction, as this will be a multi-year project. As you're aware, you considered this budget on first reading at May 7th. The budget remains unchanged from that presented to you on May 7th.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll also add that we had 2 community presentations on the budget, and encourage everybody to be aware of what our budget is. If you look at the budget, it can help look at what our programming is and what our priorities are, and our budget document is pretty awesome with lots and lots of information. Is there anyone here who would like to address council on the issue of the next year's budget? Seeing none, this public hearing is hereby closed, and we will start open the third hearing for this evening. And it's ordinance 19-3, and it amends the appropriation of funds and budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2018 through July 30th, 2019, the year that we're in right now. And I understand there'll be a little bit of change with that.
Yes, we will, and I'll address that in the public hearing, and then add to that when we consider this on second reading. This is our annual housekeeping measure. The fiscal 2019 budget and appropriation ordinance is proposed to be amended for the general purpose school fund, the school with a revised appropriation of $41,187,392. The school nutrition fund with a revised appropriation of $1,994,000. The Chapter 420 fund with a revised appropriation of $6,750,000. The grant fund with a revised appropriation of $140,309. The capital improvement fund with a revised appropriation of $675,000. And then added to the list and this differs from what was presented in May under first reading, is the solid waste fund. Our finance department continues to review and refine these funds. As City Council is aware, we cannot statutorily exceed the budget appropriation for that approved by City Council. An evaluation of 10 months worth of bills, we're seeing higher than anticipated tipping fees or charges associated with waste disposal at the landfill, as well as equipment costs. So it is recommended that the budget be amended during second reading to include our solid waste fund, which would have a revised appropriation, total appropriation of $1.9 million, $1,806,233. And again, this is housekeeping in nature. That doesn't mean that actually the funds will exceed this, but we're extending that runway far enough out that we won't exceed the appropriation and then be in statutory violation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address this issue? Seeing no one, the public
Mayor,
hearing, yes.
If I may, I just got one question, because I know we won't discuss this when we do it later, or I don't think we will.
Yeah.
We will?
Yeah.
I'll hold my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll discuss it. Okay, so next is appearance of citizens. And this section allows the opportunity for public to address City Council on any matter that is not on the printed agenda for formal consideration. Comments are limited to matters of city business only, and a response is not likely at the time, in most cases, because neither city manager nor council are prepared effectively to respond. The city manager will look in the matter and report back to City Council, or as appropriate, have staff to meet with you in an effort to satisfy your concerns. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual and are non-transferable to other individuals. Groups are encouraged to elect a spokesperson to represent them. On the list that I was provided, we have one person who has signed up, and that's Mr. Eddie Mabry. If you want to come forward and give your name and address, that would be great.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Sewell, my name is Eddie Mabry. I live at 109 Sunnybrook Drive, Bristol, Tennessee. I've come before you this afternoon to try and, I guess, remind you of our concern about jobs in the area that will be able to afford our children, grandchildren, a living wage that they does not have to leave the area. I have been assessing the number of people that the children grow up and they go off. They are no longer here to be productive citizens of the area in which they come up, simply because they cannot get the wages that they desire to earn a living. And I know that many things are viewed through the eyes of the individuals, or I should say everything is relevant to the individual about how they see things. And a lot of people see things as just going along fine, with people working 2 jobs and only turning out $15,000 to $17,000 a year out of working 2 jobs. Now, people that happen to have any children and they struggle through such times as that, if they go off to school and get any education, they'll go on somewhere else. You oftentimes say that you have good jobs that you cannot fill, and I don't doubt that at all. I don't know what the qualifications are on some of them. I met a lady 2 weeks ago, has a degree in physical education, and she was complaining to me that the only offer that she have for work right now is a part-time job at $9.53 an hour. Now, that is ridiculous that a person with that type of education, and that's all they are being able to sort out for work. I would like to, if you have those good jobs that you can refer me to, that I can refer the people to, I would really like to know where they are and what the qualifications are for them.
Thank you very much. And we may follow up a little bit with you because we just had a jobs expo and we do have some jobs not a good fit for everybody, but we share some of your concerns as well. Okay, is there anyone else who didn't sign up but would like to address council? Seeing none, we'll consider our ordinances and resolutions. Beginning with an amendment to our zoning map, ordinance 19-4, first reading, and it's designating property as RE, established residential neighborhood. Mr. Soar, would you summarize it for us?
Yes, Mayor, I'd be glad to. This item was brought to you during your Planning Commission meeting last week, and it's a proposed rezoning of property located at 1101 Anderson Street. The parcels currently has a zoning designation of B1B, which is Neighborhood Shopping and Office Zone. Staff received a request from Appalachian Service Project. As council may be aware, they have done a number of housing projects within our community. They have requested the property be rezoned to RE, established residential neighborhood. They do wish to construct a single-family residential dwelling on the property, and it allows them to take advantage of front yard setbacks that are more relaxed in the RE zone versus the B1B. This matter was presented to our Bristol Regional Planning Commission at the May 20th meeting and received a unanimous favorable recommendation. If approved tonight, we'll have a public hearing on this matter on July the 9th, as well as second reading. Sheriff Young, our Planning Services Manager, is with us to further detail the issue.
Thank you, Mr. Sora. Good evening, Mayor and council members. As Mr. Sora stated, this petition was received by Appalachian Service Project. The address is 1101 Anderson Street. They would like to change the zoning here from B1B, which is the neighborhood shopping and office zone, to the RE district, the established residential neighborhood district. As Mr. Sora stated, with the desire to develop the property residential, the RE zoning setback requirements allow for a little bit more of a flexible approach to building a house on that property, so it benefits them to have the RE zoning in place rather than the business zoning. Here is this is an excerpt from the zoning map and location map. The red line indicates the subject parcel that we're discussing tonight. Those properties that are in kind of a pinkish gray color indicate business zone, the B1B zone, and those surrounding properties in the yellow color are the RE residential zones. So this property is, if you look at this chart, kind of surrounded by residentially zoned parcels, as well as a few neighborhood shopping office zone parcels. There is some vacant property. This property is vacant, and then there are some residential homes in the surrounding area. Here is a photo. This is looking west on Anderson Street. The vacant grassy parcel here on the right is the subject parcel for the rezoning request. And this is turning around looking in the other direction back down Anderson Street with the subject parcel on the left. And this is facing the parcel with the public notice sign in front of you. So here's a quick setback comparison that shows the differences between the B1B and the RE zone. As you can see in this table, the real benefit is with that front yard setback. So if they developed a residential project according to the B1B zone, you would be looking at a 30-foot front yard setback, whereas with the RE zone, you're down to a 5-foot setback. So it would allow them to develop a home much more like what other homes have developed in that neighborhood. And this is a little bit hard to read, but details some of the uses. The RE obviously allows for single-family and duplex dwellings, whereas the B1B zone allows for some business uses that are compatible with the neighborhood. So some retail office uses that would be allowed within the B1B zone. Here's an excerpt from the future land use plan and policy. You can see in the red circle, about in the middle of the screen, this is highlighting the area that we're talking about. The yellow color does indicate a low-density residential zoning, so this request is compatible with the future land use plan and policy. One of the other elements that accompanies the actual map of the future land use plan is a couple of policies. The two that would apply in this situation are Policy 2, which is that the rezoning should protect the character of the residential neighborhood, and then Policy 6, which states that we should encourage the development of underutilized land and buildings to capitalize on existing infrastructure and services. As Mr. Sora stated in his introduction, this was reviewed by the Planning Commission during their meeting on May 20th, and they did recommend for a favorable recommendation to you, and that was a unanimous 6-0 vote. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for staff? Okay, is there a motion to take action?
Motion to approve ordinance 19-4.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
All right, would any member of council like to discuss this ordinance? And
It
go
just
ahead.
makes sense. As Michelle said, it's an easy yes.
And this was covered on our work session agenda. Would anyone in the here tonight like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. Tara, unless there's any other comments, Tara, would you take the roll?
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers? Yes. Young?
Yes.
All right, next we have renaming of the Pine Circle Drive, ordinance 19-1 to Andover Drive. Staff summarized this issue during the public hearing. Does any member of council have any questions for staff? Is there a motion to take action?
Motion to approve ordinance 19-1 to rename Pine Circle Drive to Andover Drive.
And second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, the public already had opportunity to comment during our public hearing. We're ready to vote.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is the second reading of ordinance 19-2, adopting a budget and appropriate funds for the fiscal year of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. Mr. Sora summarized this issue during the public hearing. Does any member of council have any questions for staff?
I have one question, and it's kind of related to the appropriations part,
Okay.
but I don't think we've made any changes to the budget, but would any of the appropriations warrant any adjustments to our planned fiscal 20?
Not at this point. I think the better strategy, there's always something that will occur during the course of a year that's unanticipated, and I think probably the better way to address those is see how things occur as you get further into the budget, and then make an amendment at the May and June meeting, just like we have historically done.
I recognize that because I know some of these things we don't know if grants are going to come in. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and we try and estimate on the conservative side of that. So I just wanted to ask the question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? So the public had an opportunity to comment. Is there a motion to take action?
Motion to approve ordinance 19-2, an ordinance to adopt our budget and appropriate funds for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30th of 2020.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 19-3 to amend the appropriation of funds and budget for fiscal year July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. And I believe we've had that summarized, we've had an addition.
We do.
You can guide us.
Yes, I think the appropriate measure, and our city attorney can weigh in on this too, if she so desires. But I think the appropriate measure would be to amend ordinance 19-3 that was approved on first reading to include the solid waste fund with a revised appropriation, total appropriation of $1,986,233. And then, after it's amended, then vote on the new ordinance. Does that sound pretty good to you, Counselor?
First, we'll have to have a motion to approve and a second, and then a motion to amend.
Okay, just reverse of what I said.
Okay, so we'll approve it from last time and then approve an amendment.
We'll have a motion to approve, followed by a second, if there is one. And then during the discussion, a council member can move to amend.
Okay.
And then assuming that the amendment passes, then you would have,
Okay.
so you would vote on the motion to
Gotcha.
amend and then vote on the ordinance as amended.
As amended. Thank you.
Something
Keep me
like
straight
that.
while we go through it, so.
We're making this up as we go along.
No, you're not. Maybe you are. Okay, so is there a motion to take action on what was presented at our last meeting as the budget amending the appropriation?
I will make a motion to approve ordinance 19-3 to amend the appropriation of funds for the budget year July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so now, during our discussion,
Yeah.
we
My turn.
need to have an amendment. This
I'd
is a
li-
good lesson for everybody. This is where parliamentary procedure is.
I'd like to propose an amendment to ordinance 19-3 to cover those amendments as, and increases the revised appropriations as presented to council this evening.
And that's on the solid waste fund.
The solid
correct?
waste fund of $1,986,233.
Okay. Do I have a second to that
Second.
amendment? All right, a second. Is there any discussion on either of these?
The only thing that I would say, given ordinance 19-2 and 19-3, is we sit through hours working with this budget, but we don't sit through near the time that our staff does. And our staff is especially talented, and we can never recognize nor thank them enough for the work that they do and their constant effort to keep us fiscally responsible. And so I think both of these ordinances, we have played a role in the decision-making, but staff has certainly teed us up to be successful.
And I would simplify that for a little bit for part of it is that they keep us out of trouble.
Yep, they do.
Being sure that we do everything appropriately, even when some of it just is a bother. Any other discussion on either of these issues? If not, let's vote on the amendment. I think we're ready to vote on the amendment.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
All right, and of course this is more complicated because the name of this ordinance is to amend the appropriation funds. All right, so now I would entertain a motion to approve. Do I need to have another motion?
Motion.
Or we already
No,
had a
I'm sorry,
motion
you already
on
have
it.
a You've already
done it. You've already
So
done
I
it.
think we're ready to vote on the amended ordinance for the appropriation of funds.
Sorry, I got myself confused.
When chair is ready.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
And Tara is greatly responsible for a lot of this, so Tara will wait for you anytime to get finished down there. So, okay, I think we are, let's see, on resolutions. Resolution 1942, confirming appointment of a student member to our Parks and Recreation Commission. Mr. Sora, will you tell us about this?
Yes, the City Council is aware our Parks and Recreation Commission is comprised of 12 members, with 2 of those members being students at Tennessee High School. They are appointed by the Tennessee High School staff, and before you tonight, you have a recommendation from Dr. Kim Kirk, Tennessee High School principal. She has recommended Mr. Caden Myers. He is a rising junior and will serve a 2-year term on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And that comes to you in the form of a recommendation this evening.
All right, is there a motion to take, any questions?
I would just say, serving on Parks and Rec, it's a great opportunity for our young people, high school students specifically, to wade into the world of policy making, and we welcome our high school representatives. And would you like a motion?
Sure.
Do we need a motion with the
Yes.
recommendation?
Yeah.
Motion to approve Resolution 1942, confirming the appointment of a student member to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
All right, is there a second?
Second the motion.
Anybody wish to discuss it? I'll just say we did last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that we added our second member, which I think is a great way to work it, where you have a younger and an older. So it gives students, particularly when they're overwhelmed by adults, to learn the ropes and feel more comfortable. And I think the input of our young people is really important to our process, so appreciate it. All right, if there's no further discussion, Tara, I think we're ready.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have a resolution 1943 authorizing the acceptance of a donation of equipment and exhibits from the Friends of Stacey Grayson Memorial Park at Steel Creek, Inc. Mr. Soar, would you summarize this for us?
Yes, Mayor, I'd be glad to. As Council's aware, 2.5 years ago, the City Council approved the expansion of our Nature Center and a new facility to be built there. At that time, the Friends Group conducted or began their fundraising effort to complete the inside, the exhibits, and last year, about this time, there was an acceptance of several of the exhibits that we currently have enjoyed over the last year or so. Tonight, we have, once again, recognition of our Friends Group. Terry, do we have members of our Friends Group here? We do not? Okay.
Just Terry.
Okay. Terry, if you could come on up, and I'll give you the microphone or they'll give you the podium in just a moment. But there are 2 additional exhibits. There's a beaver lodge as well as the geology wall. For those of you who haven't been to this nature center, it will really amaze you. This project is very exciting for a community. It's certainly a learning lab for our school system. And it's just an exciting addition to Steel Creek Park, and it couldn't have happened without the efforts of our Friends Group in terms of raising the funds and the excitement and the energy that they've put into this to make our exhibits the quality that they are.
Thank you, sir. You can't say enough about our Friends Group. When they stepped up a few years ago and said we'll raise the money to do the interior if the city will build the building. This is Exhibit 6 and 7. You've already accepted 5. As Mr. Soar stated, this is the crawl-through beaver lodge, which was just opened, and also the geology wall downstairs. If you haven't been out to see them, they're both pretty cool. The beaver lodge we're a little fond of internally because the park staff actually built the infrastructure for that. All the interior, what you don't see, we did all that, and that's the first exhibit that we did that much work. We have an awesome designer who is from Bristol. It's just been a great project. These two we're still rolling. We just started design on the next two exhibits. So I hope very soon to be back with a couple more donations. These were presented to our Park Commission, who accepted and recommended to you unanimously that we accept these gifts. But again, we're just getting started. Everything we do kind of rolls something else. The community, the support they've given the Nature Center and what we do from an educational standpoint is phenomenal. We've got Lowe's has now stepped up with some building supplies. We're going to turn the old boathouse into a kind of a lakeside learning lab. We just opened our apiary last week. We have our first active beehive that Jeremy Stout and I are attending. So if I come in with sores on me, you know the bees got me. But it's pretty exciting. So we hope we've already got a whole lesson with that, with the beehives and how that process works. So, and we've already had one of our local elementary schools reach out wanting a class on pollinators. And so we're going to be able to go through the entire process. And our dream next year is when those classes complete, that course, they'll take a little jar of honey home with them. So we hope to walk them through the whole process. So what we're doing, the Nature Center is spectacular. If you haven't been there, or if you've been there, you need to come back. But the learning opportunity and the staff of the Nature Center and what they provide to our community and our school system is priceless. So these exhibits, $80,000, that's a lot of money, but what you get out of there really is priceless. So thank you to the Friends Group. Thank you for this group for having the site to let us build this Nature Center for the community. Thank you.
Mayor, we do need to vote on this to formally accept the two exhibits, and then also to acknowledge the contribution of the Friends Group, which is embedded in the resolution.
Does anybody have any questions for
I just have a couple of comments. Rush is here tonight, and he serves on the Friends Board and has really enjoyed it. We went last Thursday evening to the opening of the Beaver Crawl Through and took our grandson, and it's fascinating because inside there's a camera, so as your child is going in there, you can see their reaction on a monitor over the Beaver Lodge. It's just fascinating. And we would like to thank the Blue Stocking Club for the geology wall. It is just exceptional, exceptional. The Beaver Lodge, did we have a sponsor for that other than the city, or was that done through the monies of the city?
Just random donors.
And
no, the city didn't pay for the Beaver Lodge.
No, we did the infrastructure, the internal shell, the 2x4s
Right,
and stuff, which is a small part.
But the design and the materials.
Not yet.
Also, the beehives are out and they are fenced, and in front of them, my understanding is that y'all are sowing wildflowers. And it's just unbelievable that we have this here in Bristol. And throughout the spring months, we had over 15,000 children to go through. And a big thank you to our Friends Group, to our private donors, and to this council that was willing to put the gate fee on to help offset the cost of the bonds to do the expansion. And so, a lot to be thankful for. It's very nice.
Is there a motion to take action on this item, to accept it?
Motion to approve Resolution 1943, approving the acceptance of a donation of equipment and exhibits from the Friends of Stacey Grayson Memorial Park at Still Creek.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And a second. Further discussion? I'll just be sure y'all know when everybody goes out that adults don't fit in the Beaver Lodge.
No, because I tried that. And I had a hard time getting out of the Beaver Lodge.
So be sure to either take a child with you or grab one that's around. Also, I'll say that this summer it's full of summer camps. So also if you're going, you might want to go after lunchtime. But real excited about the offerings we are able to do in the summer, and the Friends and Speedway Children's Charities offer scholarships to kids, working with, I think, Boys and Girls Club
And Girls Inc.
And what?
And Girls Inc.
And
Yeah,
Girls
we're
Inc.
trying to reach
for
out to everybody.
For some of those kids being able to get out and experience nature and learn. So it's great programming. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to address this issue? If not, I think we're ready to vote.
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rush. Consent agenda, Mr. Sora, if you'll read the items on tonight's consent agenda.
Yes, Mayor, this is one of the longer consent agendas that we do during the course of the year. All of our appropriation agreements are part of this, so bear with me as we read through this process. The minutes of the May 7th, 2019 City Council meeting, minutes of the May 28th, 2019 City Council work session, Resolution 1944 awarding a bid for the purchase of 2 ADA-compliant medium-duty transit buses, Resolution 1945 awarding a bid for the purchase of tandem vibrating riding roller, Resolution 1946 awarding bids for the purchase of uniforms, Resolution 1947 awarding bid for the purchase of highway salt, Resolution 1948 authorizing payment in support of the Bristol Public Library and Literacy Academy for fiscal 2020. Resolution 1949 authorizing payment in support of the United Way of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia in fiscal 2020. Resolution 1950 authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Bristol Chamber of Commerce for program support in fiscal 2020. Resolution 1951 authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Paramount Foundation, Inc., Paramount Center for the Arts. Resolution 1952 authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Bristol Chamber of Commerce for Convention and Visitor Bureau Services. Resolution 1953 authorizing an appropriation agreement with the with the Birthplace of Country Music, Inc. for the Rhythm and Roots Reunion Festival. Resolution 1954 authorizing payment in support of Network Sullivan Partnership for fiscal 2020. Resolution 1955 authorizing approval of the Tri-Cities Regional Airport Foreign Trade Zone number 204 financial contribution. Resolution 1956 approving an agreement with Believe in Bristol, Inc. for funding support. Resolution 1957 authorizing payment in support of Bristol, Tennessee City Schools for fiscal 2020. Resolution 1958 authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Birthplace of Country Music, Inc. for the operation and support of the Bristol Country Music Museum. Resolution 1959 awarding a proposal for third-party administrator services for the city's health and dental benefit plan. Resolution 1960 awarding a proposal for third-party administrator services for the city's reimbursement accounts. Resolution 1961 adopting the City of Bristol, Tennessee's pay and classification plan. Resolution 1962 awarding a bid for landfill disposal services. Resolution 1963 approving a grant agreement with the Virginia Department of Transportation for the utilization of Federal Highway Administration funds for the Bristol Metropolitan Planning Organization. Resolution 1964 awarding a proposal for reinsurance for the self-funded health insurance plan. Resolution 1965 authorizing an agreement for engineering services for East State Street water tank renovation. And Resolution 1966, authorizing an agreement for engineering services for water filtration plant pipe gallery improvements. And Resolution 1967, authorizing an appropriation agreement with the Second Harvest Food Bank of Northeast Tennessee.
Thank you. You did that very well. Would any member of council like any item to be removed for voting separately? Seeing none, I'll take motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second. Motion and second. Tara, would you please call the roll?
Denise?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Great. And I think we come to the part of our agenda where a lot of us like to talk, and this evening we might like to talk a little bit more than usual. So, and this is both I'm kind of coming to it. A celebration and sadness. And with that, Dr. Lilly, talking about sadness, please go ahead with your education.
Yes, well, I'm not sure about that intro with talking about sadness. Welcome, Dr. Lilly, but no, thank you. I totally get that. I'd like to thank you for recognizing our championship wrestlers. Those guys have worked really hard, and we're super proud of them. And hopefully before long we can get our championship tennis guys in front of you. We're looking forward to that too. I do want to let you know that again this year we are doing the Read to Be Ready Summer Reading program, which is a grant for $90,000. We're thrilled to have that. We target students in 1st through 3rd grades, really across the district, and on Monday through Thursdays for the month of June. We have a literacy-focused summer camp, and we focus on reading, parent involvement. Parents come in once a week. We give books to the kids every week, take them on field trips. So it's a great program. It reduces summer slide and really gets those students ready for next year. So we're happy about that. We've also got lots of capital improvement projects going on this summer. Obviously, the middle school is a biggie, and we're looking forward to seeing that come along. Some other things that we're doing include adding a secure entryway to Holston View. That is the last school that does not have a secure entryway. So that'll be a great addition to that school. We're doing some paving in the alleyway at Tennessee High School. We're also starting the soffit and fascia repairs at Viking Hall. If you've seen those, they need repairing, so we're happy to be starting that. We're installing a new gym floor at Haynesfield and replacing the flooring in the Tennessee High band room, among some other things, but those are some of the biggies that we're looking forward to. And finally, Mayor, you are right. I am leaving, which you all are probably aware. I'd just like to thank you for your service to our community, but also to our school district, and to me personally. I really appreciate that. It's great that the council and the Board of Education has such a great relationship. It definitely helps when we're all pulling in the same direction, and so I appreciate that y'all definitely do that. Our Board of Education is committed to finding a good replacement for me, probably someone that will do much better than I have done. That process will be 2 or 3 months, so it'll be a while, but whoever it is will be blessed to be part of this community. So thank you.
So I'll just say at this point, Dr. Lilly, that we wish you well. We wish you Godspeed. We say that with lots of mixed emotion. Most of it really sad. So, and also just personally, as well as I think this council can attest to it too, but personally with the work that I've done in the community and through PTA, et cetera, that we certainly have seen huge strides forward with our school district, working hand in hand with the community and really becoming that village and support for our children. And the openness of the school system and the welcoming of the community is the only way that can happen. So it has really grown, it's flourished. I think it's obvious with our children how they are doing as well. So we give you a lot of credit for that and really appreciate it. All right, before we get too much farther, let me also, before you start, Mr. Sorry, I'm going out of order and messing everybody up, but I might know what I'm doing. So we just wanted to recognize folks who are here and wanted to congratulate and welcome Malin Luttrell. We'll look forward to seeing you up here, and Vince Turner. Congratulations on your elections and good races run. And it's always, it's a big deal to change any members, and with changing for 2 members, it's going to be an adjustment for us all that we look forward to rolling up our sleeves and working hard. Also want to recognize Joel Staten back there, former city council and mayor, and his wife Peg with him. Dan Witcher was speaking earlier from Community Development Advisory. Dr. Browder and wife Linda from BTES, we will always welcome you. And I think there were a couple other people who were here earlier. So it's always nice to have folks visit with us here. So with that, Mr. Sora, we'll welcome your comments.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to express my appreciation to City Council as well as city staff for the completion of the annual budget process. As I mentioned earlier this evening, this is a process that starts in late November, and it requires a lot of hours on your part, a lot of hours on staff part, and it's the largest single project that we'll undertake over the course of the year. But I'd also like to especially express my appreciation to Tara Music, Tim Beavers, Holly Varan, Mary Lee Williams, as part of the budget team that spent a lot of hours, especially through February, March, and early April, putting the budget in its final format that you all considered initially in late April. A couple of items that I would like to remind City Council of. This Friday at 3 o'clock, there will be a groundbreaking for the Teneva Hotel. This is a huge addition to our downtown. It really expands the border of what we consider our traditional downtown. It brings an element of hotel services that we haven't seen in our community before, and I think with the design of it, there's a level of excitement with this, and I hope all of you are able to join us for that official groundbreaking. Those of you, there's been iron on that project now for a while, but this is that we hope that you'll be there officially. Also remind City Council of our June 25th work session at 5:30 in the annex. At this point, I'd like to ask Tim Beavers to introduce the newest member of his staff, our Utility Services Manager, and talk a little bit about his educational background and pedigree and how fortunate we are to have Will as part of our staff.
Yes, we are very fortunate and privileged to have Mr. William Witcher become our Utility Services Manager. Mr. Witcher is a professional engineer in the state of Tennessee and has spent the past 15 years with private consultants working in the water and sewer industry. So, like I said, we are very fortunate that he desired to be part of the team. He will oversee the Utility Services Division as well as the water plant and be our staff liaison and overseer of the wastewater plant. And with that, I'll let Will step up here.
Yes, Mayor, Council, Mr. Sora, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity, and Tim as well, to serve the city in this capacity. I am a native of Bristol and have lived here most of my life, but was away from the area for a while, but it is indeed a privilege to be able to return and bring a wife and 2 children back and reestablish roots here, and look forward to working with each of you. And my door is always open, so if you ever have any questions or would like to talk, please stop by. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, Mayor, I'd like to ask Tom Anderson to make his way to the podium. As most of you are aware, in early May, we had our second annual Small Business Festival, and I'd like for Tom to brief council about that festival and then the vision he has going forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and Mr. Sora. This, as he mentioned, this was our second annual Small Business Festival, and this was a licensed event that came out of Austin a few years ago, and it came from a couple of the council members that went to a work session at a National League of Cities.
NLC.
Anyway, it was a very interesting concept. The first one, we had a very short window to put it together. The second one, we had a little bit longer. By the time we identified the startup Tri-City group, those were the entrepreneurs that helped drive this thing home. This year, we had a total of 38 work sessions that we were able to start. It started on May 9th, which was a Thursday, and it took place in Kingsport, Johnson City, and then ended in Bristol on Saturday. We had 10 work sessions on May the 9th, we had 12 on Friday the 12th, and then 16 on Saturday, May 11th. It kicked off with Jose Castillo. He had a presentation, it was called The Birth of an Idea, and it was extremely interesting. It was his first time to do that publicly, and he did a wonderful job. And that's something that he's going to be showing around the Southeast as he goes forward with his public speaking. And it ended with a startup story of Action VFX, which is a visual effects group out of Johnson City. And it just the title of the work session, Flamethrowers, Explosion, and Other Special Effects Right Here at Home. These guys, they literally blow stuff up for a living, and Hollywood buys the film and the video, the digital imagery, and then they implant it in, I think it's been in Madam Secretary, some other shows that have been out there that their work has actually been seen around the world. So this was directed at entrepreneurs. This is part of our economic gardening where we are trying to grow an economic base. But this obviously could not have been done. John Luttrell and Christina still here. They were very instrumental in putting this together. Then, of course, we partnered with the startup Tri-City Group out of Johnson City. But I'd also like to thank Robin at the foundation, which is where we had those 16 sessions on Saturday. Alan Hurley, he actually helped and he donated quite a bit to allow this to go forward. And of course, you all in allowing us to underwrite buying the license. And we partnered with the City of Bristol, Virginia and the Chamber of Commerce to make this happen. Going forward, since we cut our teeth on this, this year, it was a very challenging weekend. We had Mother's Day, we had proms, we had graduations. There's just a lot going on. So I think we could have done better. We had several hundred participants in the Tri-City, but I think we could have done better. So going forward, I don't think there's going to be a need to purchase the license. We'll rebrand it to something specific to the Tri-Cities. It'll still be a regional effort, still be entrepreneurial driven, but we'll bring in more partners, and it'll be a little more robust, but it'll probably be in the fall. And that's something that our Industrial Development Board, I believe maybe the IDA on the Virginia side, then all the chambers will have a little more input on how this thing rolls forward, because we were fairly tight. They had a black box is what they called it, and we had to kind of stick to their format. A lot of the Eventbrite ways for people to sign up for the workshops, it's off the shelf technology. It's something that we could fashion to our own needs, and it'll probably function a lot better. So we're really excited. So we're looking at fall of 2020. We'll be doing this again, but we anticipate it being much larger. Thank you.
Very exciting.
Next, Mayor, as we've mentioned, this is Dr. Lilly's last meeting, and I can't overstate the value of a positive working relationship with a city manager and a director of schools. And I really appreciate the working relationship that we've had for the last half a dozen years. It's been a pleasure to work with you. And then lastly, as we're having these last minute moments, I'd like on the part of staff to express our appreciation to Vice Mayor Denise, Councilman Young. You've both served as members of council. You've both served as vice mayors. You've both served as mayors. I don't think anyone really understands the volume of time that it takes to serve in your roles unless you have done this personally. I know you get phone calls in the evenings. I know it's difficult to go in and go out without wearing that. You're never not on city council until you're not on city council. So I know how much it takes to do that job. And on the part of staff, we really appreciate the efforts that you all have put in. Vice Mayor, you've had 8 years. Councilman Young, you've had 6 years. We really appreciate and have enjoyed working with you. But perhaps most of all, we appreciate your support, and you've always had our back. and for that, thank you very much. We also have some presentations, and I would like to ask all members of city staff to join us, as well as our two members of departing members of city council for photographs. So come on up. Debbie, Adam, you all part of this too.
Terry, you want us to take notes while you're standing?
No, I got it.
Well, you can stop taking notes for just a second.
All staff, new and old, or young and old, or however you want to see yourself.
Excuse me, sorry.
We're trying to get Mr. Young in there a little bit. No, you're good. Here we go, guys. 1, 2, 2.
In your, for Vice Mayor Denise and for Councilman Young, as part of what you were presented tonight, there is a book that our community relations staff put together that really chronicles your service during your years on City Council, and we hope you'll enjoy those for years to come. And that
Thank you.
concludes my remarks.
That does conclude your remarks. All right, City Council, do we have some general comments before we say anything about our fellow council members? Anybody have anything in general just in general, no rebuttal
I've
yet?
got one in general
Okay.
announcement. I'd like to share an opportunity to learn more about Isaiah 117 House. This is recently gotten off the ground, I guess, in the last year, and I know Senator Lundberg's wife has been involved with it, but June 27th, they have a special public forum where they're going to be sharing information about it, and it is 11:30 to 1 at the BMS Conference Center. There is information online, social media, and some other sources. If that's something of interest to you, I think it would be well worthwhile to see what they're able to do and how they're able to help in our community.
Do you want to say what they do? So they work with kids in the foster care system, and it's pretty phenomenal, and it's really grown fast, real fast in our area. So pretty exciting and very meaningful. Okay, any other general comment?
I have a general comment. You know, tonight has been, the theme has been about relationships and the relationships that we all have in working together within our community. Dr. Lilly and I go way, way back. He was an interim principal at Avoca Elementary in the late 1990s when I was still employed by the school system, and his hair was much darker, and I weighed a lot less. But he has always been such a dynamic leader. He came into the school system with his knowledge of IT and something that was very new and groundbreaking then, and we looked to him as we began to shift and to change our teaching strategies and how we accomplished that. He then went from Avoca into the administration building for a while and eventually became our director of schools. I'm so happy for you, but it's a huge loss for us here in Bristol. It's a huge loss for me. I can't tell you how many times I've called Dr. Lilly and said, hey, have you got a minute? Or I've texted him knowing that he has been in meetings. He has just meant so much to me personally through the years and to our school system, and you will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Well, I'll ditto all of that to Dr. Lilly. I think one of the most important things that our school system has done is digital integration. Really has prepared our kids for the future, and it really took a special person with the technology background that you had to make that happen, and it's a real tribute to you. You are going to be sorely missed, and I always appreciated your open door policy for anyone to come in and talk. So you will be sorely missed, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. And all of my kids came through school during your time period, and they miss you as well. And my wife is definitely going to miss the rest of your family. She coached, I think, your daughter in basketball. I'll say that also, too.
Right. So, now we need to continue saying thank you and appreciate. So, Michelle and Jack, it is pretty awesome what your accomplishments are in the time period that you had with us. Some of the goals, I think, Michelle, you spoke a little bit at our work session about some of what you feel good about achieving during your time here. So we really appreciate your service and appreciate your being here with us and working together. Y'all can start, and I'll add in some more.
The mayor had asked me to speak specifically about Vice Mayor Denise and her many accomplishments over the past 8 years. Our three main missions are infrastructure, education, and economic development. And Michelle has done such a great job over the past 8 years to never really stray from that. My first meeting with Michelle, I was introduced to her by Miss Betty Hodge, a woman who I greatly admire, and she came by the office and said that Michelle was considering running for city council, and we met for quite a while, and just very impressed and continue to be so. Michelle has a true heart for our military service. Her son has served, and we appreciate his service, and we appreciate your service here. She was instrumental in having the Anderson Street Bridge dedicated to our veterans, and I think that's important to know. When it comes to education, I think one of her great accomplishments was being the first mayor in the state of Tennessee to embrace the Drive to 55 program that continues today and is considered to be very successful. When you talk about infrastructure, Michelle and I both served on Sullivan Networks Partnership, and it was very interesting because when Michelle began to serve, she was one of the very few women that served on Sullivan Networks Partnership as a voting member. I came on board following her. She was still there after having served as mayor. I came on when I was mayor, and it was through efforts at that point in time that Partnership Part 2 was completely received its infrastructure from Sullivan Networks Partnership, and that was quite a meeting. We were very fortunate to have the infrastructure put in. When it comes to education, she has worked tirelessly for education. I know that she received one of the first little libraries on behalf of the Junior League of Bristol at the YWCA. She has served faithfully with BTES and has provided a great liaison relationship between our council and BTES. During all of this time, she has built her own business and has worked with many different state entities and has provided insight into what it's like to deal with TDEC and your favorite state entity. But throughout it all, she has stayed true to her convictions. We've not always agreed 100%, but we've agreed more than we've disagreed. She has such a keen sense of fiduciary responsibility, and she's worked tirelessly on behalf of the people of Bristol to maintain a proper government, but at a reasonable cost, and for that we appreciate her as well. She now has a granddaughter, a beautiful granddaughter, a thriving business that she's created during her tenure on council, and she's to be commended for all that she's done. She's worked humbly, she's worked quietly, and she has gotten results for the people of Bristol. So for that, I thank you very much.
Bill, you want to?
Yes.
So we'll have to go have a picture. Or here.
Mayor, you all may want to do it.
Do another picture.
Yeah, I would think so. Mayor, do y'all want to do another picture?
Yeah, well, let's all go right again. Stay up there with the plaque. We're going to move around. Stay right there. Councilman King, do you have a few words?
Well, I'll start with Jack. Well, let me start with both of you. How's that? It has been 6 years, and I can tell you, Michelle, we learned a lot from you in our first 6 months, first year, first 2 years, really. Thank you for that. And I can say about both of you, you have served with the highest integrity and truthfulness. And so I very much appreciate serving with both of you, and very proud of the fact that we served together on this council. I've got to tell you also, too, about Jack. Jack, you are a world of knowledge. It seemed like whenever we needed information, you had the information. You're well-read. You completely, and you're a walking encyclopedia. I just pretty much wrote that down a minute ago. And I don't have anything formal, but I think one of the most important things in serving with you is you always served in a Jesus-like fashion. And that, to me, is probably one of the most important things that I have that I have to say about you, and I'm going to leave it right there.
Right, and I'll add in, starting with Michelle, for just appreciating your passion. Even if I don't agree with you on some of the things, I have to appreciate your passion and your creativity, and we certainly want to always give you credit for the red carpet tour and some of the other innovative things, but that one in particular. And service has been in your blood. It's been obvious that has something you have really wanted to do. And for me to talk a little bit longer about Jack, I'll say that when Jack ran in my district, and I did not know him, but I knew I was in trouble, not just with another redhead, but also with a red face because of all the time that he spent going door to door. And his energy and his ability and to talk to people and to put himself out there from the very beginning was something to really respect, and I'll say that's probably the biggest word that I can use with my relationship with Jack, is that a lot of times our ideology might not line up, but respect is always there. I think some things have already been mentioned, but doing homework, asking questions, seeking clarity, being responsible to be dependable for following through and to be at things that you say you'll be at or that we expect you to be at, and that you're there. Also, I'll say that it's obvious that family and faith are very, very important to you, and that comes through in everything that you do. Leadership, and certainly I think several of us have similar leadership styles, so we had some of that in common. But you know all about it and can identify it and name it and know the different tools that are used to measure it, et cetera. Also, your community participation before you ran for council, while you've been on council, and if people want to talk regionalism, I think we could talk to Jack before the regionalism has become the catchword in the last year or so, with your reaching out and working with folks in our region and talking with them. Certainly your relationship with Sullivan County Commission has gone far in developing that relationship we feel like is good today. The service that service is in your blood. Politics are in your blood, communities in your blood. I anticipate at some point you'll find a path that if it doesn't lead you back here, it's going to lead you somewhere, and certainly expect that continued service to your faith community and to our community is going to continue. So we greatly appreciate you. I appreciate you and want to thank you. We're going again, and then y'all can talk. It says, great things take time. Thank you for spending time doing things that needed to be done.
Here, she'll take your plate.
Terry. Carolyn.
Hold it up. You can, if you want her up there.
My comment about Jack is that he is an incredibly faithful human being. He's been incredibly faithful to this council. He's been incredibly faithful to this community, and he's incredibly faithful to God. And along with that, we would be remiss if we didn't thank his family, because there are long hours away from home. There's traveling and raising 3 children. Carolyn, you've done a beautiful job, and we cannot thank you enough for letting us have Jack as we have for the past 6 years. Thank you.
Yeah, you come on up, whole family. Judy. Okay, hold on. They got it. Take your time. Right. Michelle and Jack, do y'all have any closing comments?
I didn't get a chance to say thank you to Michelle. we actually met during the what's now called Communiversity, I believe, as she was starting to run, and that was a great insight into the city. But as I got involved, and I knew a few people, and said, I can help you, Michelle, a little bit, and kind of didn't know what I needed, and somebody just kind of pointed you in a direction, and then I was able to kind of help her a little bit, and then a couple years later, there was this person who asked me a question. I said, "Why aren't you running?" And it caught me speechless for a minute. And then that was sometime after the 2011 election, I guess it was. And I found myself starting to talk to my wife about that, and some other people who understood how to do that, and I started to get more involved, and then found, you know what, I'm going to run for city council. And my heart, there's a book by Gary Chapman about the 5 love languages, and I'm definitely one of those acts of service type people. I love to be able to help somebody do something, but sometimes I'm hard to get a compliment out of, and things like that on the other end of the spectrum with other gifts. But certainly service is something that's very important to me, and I appreciate the word that always came to mind with when I thought of Michelle, and especially as she stepped up to mayor rather quickly in 2013 with this council, was poise. You always you were so effective in your delivery, and you brought a great presence in the energy that you put into it. So I should probably stop there, but thank you, Michelle, for your work. If I can share, there's a quote I live by that I always read it because inevitably I'll get it mixed up. But Edmund Burke says, "Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little." And I know that I've been able to put my best effort in and tried to add value to the city, to the community, and there's a lot of things that have happened, but learning how to work together with friends who helped me understand how to get elected, others who helped us understand how to work together with other people in other parts of the government, learning even in that retreat time as we learned kind of each other's work styles. I really do appreciate those things, and especially my family, and of course my faith is paramount to me. And while there's so many different things that are highlights of the last 6 years, one of those here in the last year that was a huge highlight for me was seeing that big tent up in Bristol for the Bristol revival. And while it wasn't a government function or anything like that, it was great to see 50 or 70 pastors under the same tent worshiping together. So again, I hope that I've added value, and I know I'll continue to be involved in some of the nonprofit arena, and like I say, God is good. Thank you.
Well, to say that Jack had a small part in my election is quite the understatement. I think it's fate that we came into this together and that we're exiting together. Jack played an integral part in getting me elected. He was a machine. He knocked on the doors. We had pages of every single voter in the city of Bristol, and we pretty much knocked on every single door. And I know that he did the repeat when he ran for election, or the second time. He was key when we had an opening to come in as first choice, and Margaret was the first to mention Jack, and so thank you for sharing this journey with me. And your kids are grown up and beautiful, and your family is awesome and supportive, and I just appreciate you guys for being there and helping him be the man that he is. You know, to make a long story short, I just kind of started out as a girl that really loved her country. I started out with nothing pretty much, and realized pretty quickly that there wasn't anything to stop me from doing anything that I wanted to do. And my favorite quote is, go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life that you've always imagined. And I firmly believe that we live in the greatest country in the world. We have the Constitution of the United States, which is unparalleled throughout the world. I love this city. And at the end of the day, the whole process has been about politics and principle, but it all really doesn't seem to matter because it's all about the people, and it's the people that you work with, it's the people that you serve, and it's never the job that you miss, it's always the people. So I'll miss you guys. Thank you for everything.
So before we adjourn and say goodnight with bittersweet feelings, just to add to that, I have failed to mention the death of Lee Shillitoe this past week. That I think certainly he had a huge effect on our community with his community service. He had effect on this council with supporting different people over time, with feeling that good leadership was important at the council level. A lot of his service was humble, it was quiet. My most recent interactions with him were at Avoca School, where he had a reading buddy that he quit when he did not take on a new reading buddy because he and his wife drove Route 66. That was last fall. And then interacting with him at John Gaines's funeral recently. So I think a huge loss for our community, for Lee Shillitoe, but just like this is bittersweet tonight here, it also is a big celebration for what his life and what he did for us here in Bristol. So just wanted to add that this evening. So with that, we're adjourned. We'll meet again on July 9th. We apologize for how the holidays fall, so it'll be second week in July. Wish everybody good 4th of July, good 4th of July celebration here in Bristol that we need to appreciate because we did not have one for many years, and it began a couple years after our sesquicentennial. So we're happy to help to celebrate and get everybody out for that. With that, thanks for staying late. We're adjourned.
Jeff Foxworthy here. You know, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.